have a Victor recent it because on Amazon it came with the oil pieces for what, 12 bucks. And what I like about it is it's got the sealant in there. So what I'm going to do also, because I didn't know where it was leaking, I figured I'd go ahead and order the BMW ones too. So these are the BMW ones, and these are the Victor rents. So I have I'm going to measure them so we'll know if these work okay or if you'll have to order the BMW ones. So let me get the micrometer out and we'll check. So with the micrometer, everything lined up the same. No, I can't do it. But if you look at the one on the left, which is the Victor, you can see it's got rubber bars going across the top. And the BMW one is smooth going across the top. And the BMW thickness, the rubber part, is maybe a millimeter thicker than the Victor Reinz, if I'm pronouncing that right. And then to know if it's a BMW one, it says BMW on it. So I don't know if that's major or not. So yeah, this is the best I got for the light. It's December. It's December the 22nd, 2020. So you can see where the problem was. See all that dripping right there? And I just got done putting in the transmission and the clutch on my other video. And I thought that leak was from the rear main seal. But it turns out it's not. But I just wanted to show you where it leaks. Now the one leak I fixed already. But what happened on the one, all through here, where the oil pan is, all through here was, I know it's a lousy video, but you see what I'm getting at, was all full of oil in here, okay? Now this is the driver's side. And what happens is, right here, this guy right here, if you put your finger up underneath it, there's a little valley right there. And that baby fills up with oil. Let me see if I can quit moving it. And then overflows and comes down and drips here. And it's like, where's all that oil coming from? Because when you look back in there, you got that pipe that goes up from the for the crankcase ventilation. You know, that big pipe with the spring on it. So that looked like that was leaking. And I'm not like, where the hell's that oil coming from? And I couldn't figure it out. And then on the other side, which is why I'm here underneath my car to show you. You gotta bear with me with this video, with this camera moving. Is, let me see if I get a light on it so I can show it to you. There we go. So right up there, hold on. I got this drop light over all around me. Figures it goes over. Oh, there we are. You see the stud for the exhaust manifold? The very back one. It was dripping oil there. And it runs down the block there on the left there where you see the two holes for the anti-seize plugs. And coming out right where the drip is now, which is what's causing that drip now. You think it's rear main seal. So I thought it was those grommets up on top leaking. And it turns out it's not. It's I got that stupid head gasket leak. So that's what we're going to try and do today. Is see if I can get that head gasket leak to stop weeping oil. But what happens is that that nut, that stud there on the exhaust manifold will fill it with oil, and you can't see it draining down over the block for some reason, even though my oil is greened. But it'll come down, and it comes out right there, right where you think the remain seal is that you replaced. But this will be all full of oil in here. So let me climb out. You'll see oil all through there, okay? And that's right below the starter. And you think that, you're like, where the hell is that oil coming from? And it feeds all the way back there, and it drips like it's the remain seal. Well, remember I got a turbo on here, which is that guy over there. And I have a catch can. Well, the problem it turned out to be where it comes off the valve cover, I had a reducer. So here's the valve cover, and then the reducer, right? And then this normally goes to the throttle body intake. Well, I had the downsides to fit my catch can. I had this guy in there. I know it's not made for it, but see the size of it right there? I had a restriction, and the restriction on the oil return, I mean the evaporation emission control system, you know, this hose right in here, that blockage caused all that problems of the oil over there on the oil pan on the driver's side going all the way back. And then the minute now this is my new one, I got a new hose, and it's all one piece now. You can see it's supposed to be like a 1 inch. So if you're seeing oil over there on the driver's side, check that hose that it ain't blocked, because I know that they block on other cars, and turned out to be I injected that problem. And then my oil can's over here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's my oil can. I like to open up the garage door and let the light in. Let me go ahead and do that. You can see it. Look at all this mess. This used to be clean in here. I have a heater on in here, but I need to get some more light. So I still have that leak that you're seeing. So now I'm going to try removing the head studs one at a time, right? And we're going to see if that replacing the head studs one at a time seals that head gasket. I have a, was that Cometic? Was that multi-layer steel head gasket in there? And it said in there, I looked at the install, it said not to use that copper gold gasket material, which you look on my shelf here somewhere, I did use it. I wasn't, they recommend not to use it. You know, you spray your gasket with it. So I'm gonna, then what happened was, these are the torque to yield. I only got 15,000 miles on it. You know, you go 20 foot-pounds, you turn it 90, and then you turn it 90. Well, I went ahead and sold my torque wrench that had the angles on it. And then I went to get another set of these for $26. And the tool to do it is $90. You know, it's a magnet one that I found. And when you turn your pry bar, it knows that you rotate it at 90 degrees. So you're at $90 for that. You're at $26 for that. And then they say you got to chase the studs. And I don't have no way to chase the studs down to the block through here. And then that's another hidden $20 for just a regular tap chaser. Then you got to figure out a way to install it. So what I ended up doing was, I went over here, if you add that up, that's about $175. I just went and bought these ARPs. Because with the ARPs, you don't have to worry about chasing the threads, you know, because I'm not going to be torquing against those threads. So they said that just screw this in hand tight, and then put the grease on it, and then torque these down to 70 foot-pounds. So this was $220 versus, you know, you say the head bolts are $25, but then you got to buy that phase detector. And then the other way, if you're going to do it manually, if I was going to do it without that tool, I would get my fingernail polish. Yeah, let me open up my fingernail polish. If you wanted to do it yourself the old way, I mean with the torque the yield bolts, what I would do, if you don't have that tool, then I would just come down here and get one of these head bolts and put a mark right there, right, which is right angle, and then when that bolt turns around this way 90 degrees, then you know you have it. So you can even put a mark here. So when that head bolt comes around, the new one, stop there, and then you got to go another 90 degrees. So you could just do this with fingernail polish if you don't want to buy that tool. That's what I'm trying to show you. So they gave me the lubricant, which you got to put on the top of the stud where it meets the nut, which is an E30 socket. Almost thought I didn't have it. So you're supposed to lubricate the nut, the washer, and those threads. And they're saying, well, the stud goes into the block to chase it, which I don't have a chaser. But they said only hand tighten that in there. So don't go twisting that stud in there all the way. Well, the first head bolt came out really easy. Now, when they said to put these in hand tight, when you put them in, I thought it was hand tight and I was done. And then when I was putting the grease on it again, because I wiped it off, here the shaft was loose. So if you wiggle the shaft, you can keep turning it. So don't. Then if you look closely, I just did it. They put a 4mm torque wrench on top. So that just gives me a, yeah, see now you can turn it, you know, if you're pretty good with your hands. You know, I got maybe a 1 or 2 inch-pounds on it. And just, they said make sure not to over tighten it, but that's where it is now. I got to put some grease back on here and drop the washer on it. And then put the nut on it and torque it down to 70. I gave a call out to ARP Tech Support. They're still open. What they told me to do was to take, I'm on my 3rd one. I did this one, this one, this one. So take the torque wrench and take it to 30 foot-pounds. Wait a minute. Take it up to 50 foot-pounds. Then do the next one. 30, and then the 50. And then when you get them all in, then go back and do everything back down to 70. But the reason I stopped my video at number 3 is 30 goes pretty easy, but when you get to 50, it gets a little spooky because you see it, the washer slip. It ain't the bolt slipping, which you think it is. It's just the washer's going to slip on you. They're between 30 and 50 foot-pounds. So I just wanted to point that out to you. Alright, I'm down at the last step where I got to go back and do all of them to 70 foot-pounds. But to recap, I did the torque bolt sequence. And what was neat was I had 2 torque wrenches. One for the 30 and one for the 50. So I could just switch them back and forth without getting confused. And then, so you have to do like this one, for example, is number 2. You put the bolt in. I hand tighten it just a little bit with that little 4mm nut up there because my hands are small. I can't. It says hand tighten, but hand tightening to me versus, you know, a mechanic is different. So I just snugged them down with that little wrench, and then 30 pounds, and then wait a minute. I guess it's got to let the heat dissipate from, you know, the torque, and then go back at it again for 50. Then you go on to number 3, same procedure, you know, hand tighten, 30 to 50, number 4, 30 to 50, all the way around. And then when you get done, like I'm at number 14 now, I just finished that at 30 to 50, Now I'm going to go back around and do it one more torque to 70 foot-pounds, like it says in the instructions and the tech told me from the ARP. After I went to 70 foot-pounds, I called ARP up again and asked him if I should check my head bolts again for 70 foot-pounds after doing them down to 70. And he said only if your manual recommends that you retorque. He said otherwise just walk away from it. So his instructions didn't say nothing about it. So I walked away from it. But what's really strange though, in the manual, it says to run the engine for 25 minutes and then torque. But
and then for the initial torque, it worked out so much easier. I set this guy at 30. And then I kept switching the this is a 12 millimeter 12-point socket.
Says.
Yeah, so much for my camera focusing. I used a short one. I had a long one
torque
too,
head bolts. Those are the.
Now what I do was I would just switch this.
The one for
from
$27.
30
so that's what you have.
to 50,
and those.
And then when I was done, I put it back to 30. Then I know at the next bolt, I'll be ready to go for, you know, what torque I was at. That worked out pretty good. Now to get to 70, from 50, this one was at 50, to get to 70, I don't have the strength. I had to break out the mothership. I had to break out the big torque wrench to get this to 70 foot-pounds. If you got a torque wrench that can do the lug nuts, then you're okay. But if your torque wrench can't do like lug nuts, which is also at 70 foot-pounds, then you're going to need a bigger torque wrench before you start it. I had enough of it. This is what I used 15,000 miles ago. I sprayed my Comatic multi-layer steel gasket, and according to their website, they said not to use this stuff because it doesn't clamp the head properly, the head gasket properly. But I used it on my Subaru with no problem, so I figured it would work here again. But they say not to use this for multi-layer steel gaskets. There's the step for putting the nuts on the valve cover, for, you know, the nuts for the valve cover. You gotta understand, I'm not a mechanic, so some of this terminology I always get confused on. And then so there you go for putting on your nuts if you don't have it. When I tighten my nuts down for the valve cover, I always do 10 Newton meters first. Get them all down and then go back. I mean, this goes up to, yeah, 15 Newton meters final torque. So I go 9 Newton meters, one pass, and then the final pass 15. That way you can feel the stud and the nut to make sure you're not stripping it out. If you get up to 9, you're good. Because I've seen somewhere the washer isn't crusted into the nut, and it fights you getting up to 15. So it's all put together. I left this off so I can look down its throat while it's running to make sure no oil is coming out of there. Like I said, I just had this rebuilt. And then just let that hang. And I got my oil return all set up. Got my ground wire on. I got my catch can hooked up. And remember in the video I had a reducer in here. And that reducer built up the back pressure that it was leaking on the driver's side down along the oil pan. And then it was going all the way back, and the dripping that looked like it was the remain seal going. And then down under here, on the number 6 stud exhaust, you could see an oil drip on it. And then that was bleeding down, and also showing up where the transmission meets the engine, looking like a rear main seal. I wiped it down already, but this is where the drips come from. And like I said, but if you think it's your rear main seal, you can actually peek up into that little hole there, and you can see if oil's coming out of it instead of just around it. At the moment of truth, gonna turn the engine over for the first time with the new ARPs in there. And then you can see I got a water methanol system installed. And JL audio tweak. That brings the, you calibrate it so all the distances to the speaker to your ear. And you don't need the electronic capacitors like the capacitors and stuff on the speakers. Those will set the frequency for each tweeter, woofer, subwoofer. And then I got a 8-channel to each one of the speakers individually. And then I put a small one of these in because there's not much room back here. Alright. This used to be clean, believe it or not, that you could walk in here. But a lot of those boxes are from Christmas and everything else. Here's the bolts that I took out. Here's the number 1 bolt. I like to measure them if I could. There's the number 1 bolt that I took out. Look pretty good, huh? So, alright, bear with me. And let me just check over here, make sure there's nothing hanging. And we're good here. And this ain't gonna hit anything. There's the water methanol injection. That's the control to the electronic boost controller. And I got a new fuel pump in there. I had to cut off the fuel pressure regulator here because when the hose goes over it, it was sticking up too high. I couldn't get that down into the turbo. And this got water methanol. I mean, excuse me, a mega squirt. And then I redid the interior too. I did all this work myself, by the way. Let's see here. Just had something to sit on. Let me get something clean. There we go. Whoa. And I got a short throw shifter. I'll make sure that's in neutral. It should be, but I'm on jack stands. See how short that is? You can hear the scavenger pump, wideband sensor, and then that's 12 volts, and my scavenger pump is pulling 4.3 amps. So I hooked that up so when I'm driving, if I see amperature, I know my pump's working. And then I got this from Europe. Alright. So here we go. I haven't started it in 3 months. Oh, quiet. My battery's going dead, so if I lose you, it's because my battery went, but I'm going to turn it off here and put a new battery in. It's under there so far. That usually takes like 10 minutes. No leaks down here on my oil return line. And see what's going on in the turbo. See if any oil's coming out of it. Out of that. That looks clean. I know you can't see into it, it's dark. So I'm gonna shut down the video. Let it idle. Oh, I want to check my oil pressure. So I'm at 53 still. So I am. So put in that 3mm reducer in there, didn't really affect anything. You can see it at 53. And then I have a switch right here. This switch right here, it switches that gauge between fuel and oil. So there's my fuel gauge pressure, which is what, 53 PSI, I forgot how many bar that is. And then when I flip the switch, it switches over to the oil. So my oil's at 55 going into that turbo. So it's still putting a lot of pressure into that system, even with that reducer. So that reducer really didn't do anything pressure-wise. I don't know if it's doing any difference volume-wise. But if you recall, I have 4 returns out going into the cylinder head to get that oil back down to the oil pan. And then one of the other switches, there's my rear view mirror. And then when I put the turbo back in, this is an option for the stage 2. I don't have the set screw turned in far enough to catch the revolution, but I got to turn a little bit at a time, you know, because I don't want to ruin my sensor. And then you can see how the scavenger pump reduces its amperage as the oil warms up. And you can see the RPMs coming down. And then I have the Mega Squirt underneath the seat on the passenger side. And then here's my stereo controller. And the box is underneath my seat. And then JL Audio sold a Bluetooth audio for $29. So I have that wired into it too, so I have Bluetooth. And then in the trunk, in the dash, I have it set up for a Sirius radio. So that's some of the things I have. I'm just trying to pass the time here to see if I'm going to get any leaks underneath.